Snowbird meeting room. We are in Star Citizen today. Void Walker Joe couldn't make it, so Mike and I decided to go ahead and start the podcast in game on the Carrack, the loaner ship for the RSI Galaxy, the new concept ship. So, Mike, take it away.
Yeah, yeah. So last we left you guys, we were talking about IAE and how it started out, and what was expecting, and all that stuff. But IAE is over, basically. We're on the final days, and our topics today include the remainder of IAE. Uh, a salt post I found was about ship backlogs and Spectrum salt.
Yeah.
uh, um, Kind of going to look at Star Citizen and Squadron 42 leaks a little bit today, and at the end we'll give our final thoughts. And yeah, so let's hit up topic one. So remainder of IE. So was IE good this year overall? Yeah. And as a matter of fact, it was probably the smoothest IAE I've ever attended in my 3 or so years. Um, and even with, weirdly enough, like there was not really a whole lot of problems I ran into. I could still go to every ship. I could access every ship. I could walk through it if it was walk throughable. Like a multi-crew ship or something, or even a single seater like a Prospector. Like everything worked.
Agreed.
With one bug. One bug disallowed you to rent ships, but the resolution was to go to another server. So there was a workaround.
Yeah.
So all in all, it was a good IE. Like I can't really fault that. And I think I had a pretty pleasurable experience. So how about you, Shadow? What was your IE experience like?
Um, Compared to my first one, um, when I this was 2 weeks after I first started the game, so I was running at a lower video card setting, so it was janky to me, and I did rent the C2 to try it out and fly it. But this year for me, I was super hyped because last year I really didn't know what was going on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And this year, it was a big hype, and I was very pleased with the performance because once somebody told me that I need to max out my graphics card, it was a whole lot smoother. And being on Microtech, it was a very smooth experience compared to last year.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, as far as the performance with the free fly and everything going on, it went rather well. I mean, I had maybe 230Ks out of the whole experience, and I did stream every day. So I had no issues during the whole time. I didn't rent any ships because I had what I wanted. I went and saw everything, um, but I enjoyed it. I was very impressed with what they did, and the last day where they had Anna Demetriou's hologram, and they showed things that we went against during the year, like Mendo Ren's armor was there, the Xenothreat commander's armor was there, a couple things that made the experience really interesting. and it was cool. It was really cool. If you haven't seen it yet, please go see it. It's on the lower level near the rental terminals, and you will also see two banners there that showed the statistics of how many people were involved with the Xenothreat and Ninetales events. Over 80,000 missions were completed, and the top organizations who participated. It was really cool. I was very impressed with that. But that's all I have.
Mhm. Yeah. Um. So last we left you guys, there was a handful of days left and uh, ships that we haven't talked about. So what's happened since then, as far as like release ships go? Um, the number one ship, I would argue tooth and nail for, honestly, that was released this year was probably the Drake Cutter. It's probably, I'm gonna guess it's probably the number one selling ship as far as new ships go this year. It's such a great starter ship. You get cargo space, you have a garage, you have a bed. You could probably do like low end bounty hunting. It'll take you from bunker to bunker. It's a great all arounder ship. And then so after that is my favorite shuttle, and that is the C8R medical. I was
Yes,
so happy when that came.
hands
This is
down, hands
hands down
down.
my favorite. Uh, the other release ships are um, the Corsair was finally released. It's a great forward facing ship. It's an expedition ship. Has some great features to it, like the elevator that I think almost every ship should have.
Mm-hmm.
Every ship should have some sort of elevator that takes you to the top, to the ceiling. Now, like the Carrack, which we're flying in right now, right? Um, it has a ramp, and then it has an elevator in the back. You can go all the way to the roof. So this ship's covered. You don't have to worry about it. But ships like the MSR don't have an elevator to take you to the top, and I think that's a that's a thing that I feel like CG is going to have to look at. So that's one thing that the Drake Corsair taught me. Um, the I don't think the concept ship that was put on sale this year, which we will talk about here in a little bit, but it's called the Galaxy. Um, I think it's a really cool function and idea, but we'll get to that in topic two. Um, yeah, so of the ships, I think you kind of nailed on the head. The CAR was your favorite release.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't ask for a better ship to be released. This is one thing that I still stand by, that the Corsair needs a medical station to be a full blown exploration ship.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument for many of the ships in the game. Like if it's any ship that's going to be out for a while or meant to be independent, it definitely needs some sort of medical ability, hands
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
I can't disagree with you there.
Um,
Um,
but to get back to the C8R,
mhm.
one of the most beautiful interiors for a snub ship,
Yeah.
and
The
a working stockable storage area for medical supplies, and it refreshes each time you call the ship.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing that's pretty awesome about that. Ha! Sorry, Redeemer lovers. Uh, oh, we got a story of a friend who had Redeemer. The first thing they do is take something out of the stock fridge, drop it on the floor, and they step off and it explodes the ship. Pretty common occurrence here in Star Citizen. Like, if you're getting into Star Citizen for the first time, understand that there's problems with the game.
Yes.
But as far as the C8R, so medical gameplay is a pretty is officially out. Technically, Tier 0 medical gameplay is out. In all technicality, you can heal somebody to bring them back to life, to get them to a state to where they can get up and move, and then you can get them to C8R Pisces and allow them to heal on that Tier 3 bed. And, remember, Tier 3s won't let you regenerate there. They'll only like get you into a state where you're completely stable,
Mm-hmm.
but you still may have injuries. Now you can get to a Tier 2 to where you're like, say you have a broken leg, that can get healed up, or to a Tier 1. And Tier 1's like life-threatening kind of level stuff that you will die if you don't get attention for.
Right.
Which, as of right now, only the Carrack has a Tier 2 bed, and I think the Cutlass Red has two Tier 2 beds.
Yes.
I don't think any other ship right now has medical beds. Um, and so
Um, the 890 jump.
yeah, that's true. The 890 jumped it. I forgot about that. My apologies. Um, but then again, so that kind of brings home to a point here. I was actually surprised that they had a holo for the Apollo.
Mm.
um,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I I'll be honest, and I'm not gonna lie, and I was rather disappointed that they haven't put an Apollo in the game yet. Because if we've entered medical gameplay, I think it's time to start releasing. If there is a function in the game for it, even if it's half the ship, it should deliver a ship for that function, such as the Apollo, where the Apollo has medical beds. It's basically a floating hospital. You can literally go into the system, and people throw up medical beacons all the time, and you can go and heal them.
Yes.
You know,
But it's modular.
well, modularity can come later. I mean, we're
Yes.
sitting in a character right
I,
now.
I
You know,
agree. I agree.
I don't, I don't need. How to say this? I don't need to not have the ships in the game because of a modularity thing. You can put the assets on the vehicles and just release them as is, and you can spawn them with the modules you want until those are swappable by some sort of system.
True.
But I'm not the decision maker at CIG, and that's part of the stuff we're gonna talk about later. Now, one of my favorite parts of IAE is the Whitley's Guide videos. It,
Yes.
if you haven't experienced Whitley's Guide, I implore you to go back through Star Citizen on YouTube and go watch the Whitley's Guides videos. It really brings a top, like for several years, it felt like Top Gear inside of Star Citizen, inside of the Stanton system. It was excellent. There's presentations by CEOs of corporations and stuff like that, and talk about things, and they introduce ships. And this year was different, but it was a really good difference
Yes.
in this. Um, and this year, at the end of last year, Jax hijacked an Odyssey and took it to the Pyro system. And this year's videos is about him discovering how everybody in Stanton thinks he got killed, and now he's trying to make his way back into Stanton. And there's some hijinks along the way. Excellent videos. I hugely implore everybody to go watch his videos because it really makes IAE feel like an event. I think it lifts the event up considerably.
Uh,
So
I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody, but the last one rocked.
yeah, I really wish they would have released more, but
Yes.
I got to be grateful for what we got. But yeah,
Agreed.
yeah, but yeah, I mean that kind of wraps it up for IAE. I mean that's the biggest event in November, the second massive ship sale, second massive ship sale of the year, but third ship sale nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
Now I encourage anybody out there. I have a philosophy on buying ships. Buy ships that you've flown in game, and the reason is because you know you like them or not. I
True.
know the temptation. I know the temptation of getting ships that you really, really want, and You live on this hope dream of having the certain ship that you want. By no means am I telling you how to spend your money. I'm just giving advice to new people out there that may be listening into this podcast at some point.
True.
Buy ships you've flown and love. If you don't know whether you like to fly it or not, don't be afraid to make friends. The best thing Star Citizen can provide is friendships and crews to people play with you. I think that is Star Citizen's massive redeeming quality that no other massive on game gives. So buy the ship you want and learn to play with people. Two biggest pieces of advice I can give to anybody.
Yes.
So yeah,
a good example is I met you because you wanted to check out a vehicle that I had, and I flew the Mercury Star Runner
yeah.
and fell in love with it. And today I have an MSR
Oh yeah.
because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good example. Yeah, I wanted a Carrack when I flew the Carrack. When I picked it up, and she was heavy, she was big, she has everything I want. She definitely is going to be my flyer until a release of another ship comes out. But yeah, I mean that kind of wraps it up for IAE. The next major thing is Luminalia, which is the end of December, basically Christmas. At the end of the year. And we got a lot of things to talk about over the next couple of weeks for 318. And the good news about 318 is they're on a Delta patch in Evocati right now.
Yes.
And so we got to keep the hopium alive on that one.
Right? Crossing fingers and toes.
Yep. And toes. All right. Well, let's hit topic 2 here. So topic 2 is I've dubbed the ship backlog and Spectrum Assault. It never fails. Every year, somebody finds something to throw a hissy fit over.
Yeah.
And get upset about.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at the reality of what's going on. So the general consensus is everybody's upset because there's so many ships in backlog. If you paid money for it, you have absolutely every right to be upset.
Yes.
And I'm not going to step in anybody's way on that because hey, you paid money for it. You want to know where your stuff is. I mean, you're pledging your money. And I've been playing this game long enough that I feel like the money that I pledged into the game, I am getting a lot of stuff I've paid for, but I'm still waiting for quite a bit of it. The general consensus is people just want their backlogs cleaned up. They want small, even if it's small ships. But I want to remind everybody, especially the new folks, that every release over the last year and a half, there has been new vehicles coming. Every release, every patch. So I encourage you to stick with it. Keep playing the game. Keep making friends. Keep having fun because your ship's going to come. And especially now that they are focused solely on releasing ships that only have gameplay or have gameplay being released in the next patch. So you got something to look forward to, and I would encourage everybody to stay on that path. Just try to enjoy the ride because that's all we really can do at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the general the general consensus that I'm mentioning here is that there's a backlog of what they call 35 years of man hour, 35 years of backlog. Now, I want everybody to, if we go back to what John Crew, I believe it was John Crew who stated it, he's not actually saying it's going to take, 35 years to actually produce it. It's 35 years of man hours to finish up the entire backlog. And so, but we also don't know several things. A lot of the information we don't know. We don't know how much is already done, how much is already started, how much has to be redone, how much needs reworked, how many things are going to be redone. I mean, take for example the Polaris, which is coming out on Inside Star Citizen this week, or Star Citizen Live, one of the two. they're going to talk about the rework on that. And we just had the Band of Merchantmen go through a long stint of development and upgrading,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't really we know that the outside's done for the most part. I think the inside's like been started. I don't know how far along it is, but you got to remember that these are people too, and they have burnout, and they have jobs, and they get tired, and they got to take breaks, and then sometimes people leave, and that's why I believe what's been found out is a couple of the guys working on the Band of Merchantmen found better jobs or left for whatever other reason. You just got to remember these are humans. And in October, they just hired on 500, 600 people,
Yeah.
which that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's nearly doubling headcount. What that means is, what that really means is you can start expecting things to double in speed, or for development one way or another.
Yeah.
Maybe, perhaps, and I'm talking about the overall project, Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. That doesn't mean Star Citizen will get double speed, but you will get more frequent stuff and integrations coming in. So,
But
um,
also, too, not to just to say, with those 500 people, they've got to be brought up to speed.
oh yeah, no, very good
So
point.
it's going to take a minute for them to get acclimated with everything that is already established and be able to produce things. So it's going to take a minute, you know? Not trying to say that they're dragging feet or anything like that. They put a brand new person on a project to see how he performed, and he performed brilliantly. So you got to give him time. I'm not trying to blow smoke up
Mhm.
anybody's butt or anything like that, because there's a ship that I want,
Mhm.
okay, that's in concept. And
Mhm.
it's got a 52-week sprint, and it may not come out until IAE.
Or
I don't
even
know.
after that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. But I mean, yeah, I can understand people with the serious backlog. I mean, they've been waiting for ships for years.
Hmm.
But the main thing they got to also remember is if they bring a ship that is larger than the scale of the game right now, it will break it and we won't have anything.
I don't think that that is entirely true.
I don't know.
I think more or less the bigger problem now is the ability to man it.
Okay.
Um, and then the other systems that need to be focused on too. However, I do agree with the idea that it should not be brought in. Anything larger than I really think that even 890 jumps kind of pushing it, but anything larger than a 600 it shouldn't be in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just simply because the amount of people you can have per server is you kind of want to have more ships than, I mean, if you put one Polaris or one Idris in there, you're taking 20 people,
Yeah.
you know, out of a 100 player server, but you have no idea what's going to come next out of that, right? Like, if you have 10 capital ships, you're not going to have enough players
Right.
to deal with that. So I'm just, I really think that just being a little more patient, but keep kind of poking them. It's like, hey, we really want this. Hey,
Yeah.
they'll get it. They'll get it. We just gotta stand by and just let it happen.
Right.
But but
You
the
get.
reality of it all kind of boils down to this: we pledged for this. We pledged money um, to get these features to get this game. I mean, like I can tell you right now that over the last 3 years that I've been playing this game or longer, that the game has improved so much. Like we're sitting here on a Carrick, which was released during my time, with decent frame rate. I mean, honest to goodness, we were having really good frame rate. Um, I'm probably, hell, I'm running 70 frames a second right now, just sitting here. And I
Mm-hmm.
can tell you, and I think on Orison during Siege of Orison, I was hitting 45 because it's such a messy area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can tell you that when I started this game, I was lucky to get more than 30 frames a second anywhere, anywhere.
Right.
And that, at the time, I was running 1080s at 1440p. So, so I gotta say that there has been progress. New ships have come out. I mean, we literally got a Vulture now. We literally got you know 890 jumps. I mean, we got a Carrack, we got a Pisces, we got um ground vehicles that we didn't have, like the Spartan, all
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
So like lots to come. So gameplay wise, they've updated like the inventory system got completely updated when I started. The um missions have gotten more expansive than what they were, and especially lately when they're doing missions to where you can go to like a reclaimer and figure out what happened to the crew and get like the data pad that you need to get and then go submit it, right? There's that, there's um ability to trades there, the ability to mine is there, like the ability to do medical gameplay is there, and we're getting next month, in the month of December, we're getting hull stripping and salvaging, we're getting physicalized cargo, PES, into the Gen 12 renderer. These are massive things, at least especially like the PES and Gen 12 renderer. These
Yeah.
are massive, massive integrations. But that's a topic for in a couple, over the next couple of weeks that we'd go through.
Right.
Um, but truth be told, this is how the game's funded. We buy stuff, they make the game. This is the biggest crowdsourced game of all time, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even, and technically speaking, it's not even making it good, like making good on the money, because they just posted a profit a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have a successful business model. They make ships and they sell the ships. That's what they do, and they have merchandise that they sell. And I believe over the course of 2022, they've made an excess of 105 million US dollars. And I can almost guarantee you about 85 that is already spent. The
Oh.
remaining of it probably profit and being used for expansion.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing. You got to realize like they didn't just start with that. They started with like maybe $1 million in funding and it went up.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're paying for the thing. We're paying for them to build the dream we want, that we all share with Chris Roberts, that we've shared with Chris Roberts since Freelancer, well, since Wing Commander, to be honest. Um, and, when you play Star Citizen now, and I'm going to say this until I don't, you're not playing Star Citizen, you're playing the sandbox in which Star Citizen's being built upon. And I don't know how else to express that.
True.
Yeah. So you got any thoughts on any of that?
Um, I am at the point where let them do their job. Let them do what they got to do.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. I'm enjoying the game for what it is right now. Yeah, we all get frustrated. Yeah, we want more. But you know what? I've talked to people that have been there from practically day one, and they didn't have anything for a few years until they brought in the hangars. And then they brought Porto. And then here comes 3.0, and you were able to land on a planet.
Yeah. I
Okay?
remember.
And as it's progressed, we've gotten more and more and more. Each patch has brought something. And I'm coming in on 315 where medical gameplay was there, inventory was there. So I didn't know any of the horror stories of the things that were before.
Oh man, I can only tell you, like back when I started, you can only spawn at Port Olisar, and
Right,
Orson and the current iteration of Crusader, it was just a flat 2D. It was basically a 2D texture on a ball, and that was it.
right.
Yeah, and I remember, like, it was a whole different world. Like you could barely. I think you could buy like maybe 1 or 2 weapons there. You could do like maybe 4 or 5 missions.
Mm-hmm.
Trading like you. Oh, and money wasn't persistent either. You
Right,
lost money all the
right.
time. Like every time you logged out, logged back in, you lost money. But you
Yeah.
started with some cash and build up just a
Right.
hair.
But I
And
mean, there was there was really no persistence back then.
no, none.
And persistence didn't start until 314 or 315.
314, I think, was if starts of the persistence of stuff. I think the money persistence came sooner than that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd have to go look to be honest with you. But basically, it wasn't until 314 that I think all the persistence and inventory systems were in.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, they iterated, they performed some iteration. So um, the early versions of the current inventory system, like
Mm-hmm.
tier 0 version of it,
Yeah.
basically your inventory was shared everywhere.
Yes. That's what I
And
heard.
yeah, and eventually what happened is then they went from everywhere to each planet to each station or each city. Like it delved down eventually, which I think is a smart thing to do because I mean the idea of the simulation is to make it as realistic as possible. If I live on Earth and all my stuff's on Earth and my dogs are throwing around the bones.
Right.
Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
Um, if I go to the moon, I shouldn't expect to be able to pull out of an inventory box my my cup with
Right.
my drink in it, that I
Right.
left on Earth.
Yeah, because I'm gonna. And this is one thing that I've encountered when 315, 316, then all of a sudden 317 they separated the inventories. So things that I used to could get on say Bikini Point, right? That was connected to Area 18, but now I can't do that anymore. So this was saying that it's a step up because it's a reality thing. All the stuff that you purchase on Area 18 stays on Area 18. Then you have to move things that you want to another place. So it is a progression of the technology, and it works.
Oh yeah.
So this is what we want. This is what we want. We want something that has some reality to it. Yes. So we're going to have to go with the flow on this. And I'm not trying to speak for everybody because that would be totally wrong of me. But for what I have encountered in my year in the game, is this is what I'm dealing with. Okay, I make my adjustments. I start planning things better. And Star Citizen is all about preparation for what you have to deal with out there. So that's my take on it. I'm happy with what's going on with things, but yeah, there's some
Mm-hmm.
things that I do want to come to fruition, but I'm willing to be patient with it, take my time with it, and
Mm-hmm.
go from there.
Yeah, right on.
And that's all I got.
Yeah. So that brings us into our third topic. Um, so there's I kind of got 3 sections on this third topic, and so I'll kind of address these like one at a time, but we'll start with the easiest one. One of the leaks, or rather rumors, I've been reading a lot about is what um, Squadron 42's money's been spent on.
Yes.
And it's, to be fair, Squadron 42 has taken, I think, upwards of $200 million to produce. That's salaries, but that's also salaries of majors actors. Like, I'm talking Mark Hamill, we're talking Gary Oldman, we're talking Gillian Anderson, Stanley Tucci. These guys are not cheap. And
Yeah.
so with that kind of star power behind it,
Yeah.
that it's going to cost money.
And
Um,
Henry Cavill. I mean, you know,
hmm
things like that. They've got to be paid for what they did.
Yep.
You know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And apparently there was a Chinese firm put in to help out with Squadron 42
Yes.
for scenes
Mm-hmm.
because apparently they couldn't get enough people hired on
Mm-hmm.
in time. Fair enough. To be honest with you, fair enough. I mean, it's a big and an immersive and massive project. It's going to require some serious effort on a lot of parts, right?
Yeah.
And if there's anywhere that you can bring on to help out, you know, a lot of the a lot of the ways involve outsourcing and where you outsource to, and especially how you spend your money comes involved of, well, where can I go to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna pretend that it wasn't a smart business decision to go to China to do this, because it probably saved them a lot of money at the end of the day. Because maybe the finances working with China is just easier than working with somebody in Canada or US or somewhere else in Europe as well, or Australia. There's probably more than enough manpower in, say, China than a lot of other places that are already willing to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably just a smart business decision at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, that's really for Squadron 42 directly. That's really all there is to that, to be honest. Um, Now here comes here's the more juicier stuff I think that we can really learn to love. So this is going to deal with capital ships, and this is why I told you I don't think we have a problem. So how how are capital ships going to function in gameplay? Well, actually, what this really is the topic of that. So Turbulent apparently has been tasked with figuring this out. Um, so for those who are uninitiated, Turbulent is probably one of the best studios that CIG has ever invested in. They kick butt, and they've done a lot of great stuff within the game, and they've designed a lot of systems. And I can pretty much guarantee you this: if it functions near flawless, Turbulent's probably the team that's done it, and they do a fantastic job.
I have to reiterate on that. They're coming into the game in 317. They talked about doing the reclaimers, right? This was before it dropped, and I can't say anything bad, dude. Those things work very well. When you're going into a reclaimer, the Black Kite, the Red October, the Ghost Hollow, they're
Yeah.
they're they're good, and they put those out in less than how many months?
Oh yeah, definitely. If I would argue that if CIG had two or three more turbulence behind them, or the new people that are coming in, if those new people coming in that work in UK um, become basically turbulent equals, then you will see this game really smooth out and expand. These guys are just great at what they do. They are excellent at everything they touch. So I don't have a lot of I mean like I literally can't complain. I mean, yeah, of course there's bugs, but hey, this is an alpha after all. Um, so basically, when we do one of the topics that I saw is basically the NPC systems, like everything else, will start at a tier 0.
Mm-hmm.
And those NPCs will perform just basic functions in ship. You
Mm-hmm.
know, replacing things, updating things, manning a turret, maybe nothing too complicated other than that, really. Just kind of like manning a turret or, you know, maintaining a system the way it is. Um, so don't expect too much of that. Other than that, more information will probably come out later, and things can change. And again, these are rumors. I want to make that very clear. These are rumors. Um, and then the other thing that I think that people need to be aware of, since we're getting Gen 12 renderer and the Vulkan API is coming in, there's a thing called LOD, or level of details, and there's also directional spawning of assets. So in game development, and here's my game development hat coming on. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a video out there where it said this is how game developers make you think you're in an open world. So basically, what happens is your character's vision's in front of you, right? Right now, as it stands, everything's being rendered around us. Front of us, back of us, everything all the time. The performance enhancements that we're going to be getting from things like Vulkan is going to allow the following things. Level of detail means that the further you are away from something, the less detailed it is, because it's so off in the distance that it doesn't matter what it looks like until you get up on it. So
Mm-hmm.
think about when you're flying down from space to a planet, and this is observable currently in the game. It doesn't look like anything but a blob of something. The closer you get to the ground, the more detailed it pops in, the more
Yeah.
realistic it looks. That's what level of detail functionally is. Um, so
Go
how they're
ahead,
going
Mike. I got to step away for a sec. Go ahead.
so the subsequent part of that is characters, ships, asteroids, scenes, all that stuff should only render when you are looking at it. When a player is looking at that specific thing, or when it gets drawn from the GPU, that's the only time it should matter, when you're actually rendering something. What that'll do is that'll help performance out quite a bit. So, but that's the thing to come eventually. Um, so what does that do? So when you start talking capital ships, the level of detail matters. So when you're inside of a capital ship, it is too taxing for your character to render the outside of the ship unless you're looking outside the ship. And if you're looking outside the ship, everything inside the ship should be hidden and not using resources. So how does that translate to the future? So what that means is the performance hit from a capital ship coming in should be a lot less when there's an actual level of detail map or level of detail chain that occurs when those ships come in. It should be much easier for systems to handle.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah. So another thing to think about too is NPC crews and stuff like that. And this was the other. There's two more things here. The NPCs, they kind of want to do a 3-to-1 ratio of like maybe 15 players maximum per cap ship. And if you have, like, say, a 30-man crew ship that, maybe you have 10 human players actually flying that ship, and then the rest of them is NPCs doing their own thing or functioning with the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there is kind of what I'm talking about, where maybe if you're one person, you can still fly your capital ship, but you gotta man your turrets. So you gotta tell your crew to man your turrets, and you gotta tell an engineer to go do this thing. Now this comes with the resource management system that was showed off at CitizenCon. So now we're starting to see how these systems come together. Following that, their philosophy is to really right now only have, well, not, this is a rumor again, that only 4 capital ships per server would be available. Well, then you got to say, wait a minute, what about the shard system? Well, remember, a shard is run by a server,
Yes.
or several shards can be run by servers. So that each system is going to have several servers hosting a system,
Hmm.
which means that you will have multiple capital ships in a given system, but not per server. Because right now, as it sets, when you enter Stanton, you're in one singular server. But eventually, shards are going to cover space, or this defined area of space, defined area of ships, defined area of planets, stuff like that. So got to keep that in mind. And I really think that's going to lead into capital ships really becoming a thing. So if we think about the underlying technology for that, that's the Gen 12 renderer, persistent entity streaming, resource management, NPC crew, and there was one other one.
I can't
Server
remember.
meshing.
Yes.
Server meshing, yeah. So those are the major leaks that have been announced for the year, or rather, not announced, but leaked out, if you will. The rumors, again, they're not guaranteed to be real. So we'll have to see.
Leaks
Yeah.
are not set in stone.
Yeah. So I mean, you got any feedback on that there, Shadow? On
Um,
any of that?
the main thing that I'm looking for, and this is one thing that I do have a major problem with, and that's stability.
Well,
Without the stability, we have issues. And
yeah.
I understand that we get disconnections. I'm okay with those, but right now, especially
Mhm.
with 318 about to drop, we need something stable because CIG is going on hiatus
Mhm.
at near the end of December, in the middle of December to the 1st of January. So 318 has to be stable enough for them to run a skeleton crew.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was more than a skeleton crew doing this year. But like,
Probably.
I agree though that, well, I will say this too. Server stability over the last over the last 3 to 4 years, as long as I've been playing, it's only gotten better.
Agreed.
I think I don't. You weren't there during the days of the 30Ks,
No.
where you probably had 4 30Ks in an hour.
Mm.
How many 40Ks do you get in a week now? 30Ks, sorry.
Um, lately, since we had them rampant in the first part of 317.1,
Mm-hmm.
I've had maybe 4 to 5. In 317.2, they were still pretty frequent. But
And
in the cycle of 317 thus far to now, I've had 2.
yeah,
So
so I mean,
it's gotten better.
yeah, it'll only get better. You gotta, and it'll only get better, especially with a lot of the newer technologies coming into place. So 30K is a client disconnection from the server, and that can happen for many, many reasons. One of them, the internet goes out, or
Yes.
perhaps the server stops, or you stop responding to the server. A lot of these things can happen for many reasons, such as a command isn't being sent. You
Mm-hmm.
hit a button, or the server is just not responding anymore, and
Right.
it just shuts down. There's a lot of those things. So I mean, you're gonna have waxing and waning, but if you look at the trend, especially if you've been here a long time, the trend is 30Ks are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Server stability will be twice as good as it was next year. So barring anything weird, but I mean that's just how game development is. At the end of the day, I don't think server stability will be perfect until server meshing comes into play.
Yes.
Dynamic server meshing, especially, to where if a server goes out, it can be replaced instantaneously.
Right.
So you got to remember that.
Static server meshing is a step,
Hmm.
and
But
it's a monumental step to what they're trying to achieve. But
yeah,
I don't see any major capital ships coming until we get a stable platform for static server meshing where they may put one, maybe two, and then when we go dynamic, you'll see more. Just my thought. I don't know all the particulars, but a capital
yeah,
ship takes a lot. It takes
yeah.
a
No,
lot. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just say you missed out when I was talking about level of details and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard some
Um,
of it. I heard a lot of it. My bad.
yes, you're fine. So right now everything renders in game, like everything. The entire system is actively rendered in your game right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Just with
that's
us
quite a bit.
sitting here. Just with us sitting here.
Yeah, and it will get better as things can be marked to wait to render until you arrive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when that level of detail stuff. Basically, to reiterate, level of details is probably where that's going to help out a lot. But that's not the end all be all, and that's not going to stop problems.
Right.
Problems will stop when the latency of when things are become persistent into the world. That latency between the times it's called from a server to existing is cut down considerably. And the what PES does, and this is where I think a lot of people get confused. PES is a persistent entity streaming. What it means is it removes entities like that cup or your drink or your armor or me or this pin off of system RAM from the server and puts it in a dynamic database independent of that server that's hosting. And what does this result in? This results in a handful of things. One, that those items will exist server to server. Two, it will allow restoration to the exact point at which you got kicked off, for example.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and three, the fringe benefit is basically now that server performance is becoming less hindered, more things can be put into the game that don't eat up as much memory anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, now each server doesn't have to load everything another server has, and when you sign off of a server, it could unload from that server. And so
Okay.
now the amount of system resources is requirement is reduced overall, but you still maintain that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there may be times where you see more people per server and times where you see less people per server, just simply because of how much people can handle. What we're not getting is instances. We're not getting anything like that until later. But I
R-
just want to put that out there.
right. Okay. I mean, I am more, like I say, right now with the stability that we have, I'm very pleased compared to what we did have earlier this year. We had a lot of problems, and our databases were totally obliterated, and we needed a wipe. That's
Yeah,
all there
still
was
do.
to it. And we're gonna get one for 318. So be prepared. And oh, in one of my streams, and I'm sorry, Micah, I have to say this. In one of my streams, the C8R is not going to get the best in show paint. And I know that other content creators have covered this already, but this is something that I have to say because I was not sure about it. And I did say I don't know, but I'm going to correct that. They're not getting it because the ship did not exist. And a lot of people thought that when they upgraded their C8X to a C8R, they were going to get that best in show paint. You are not. That's what CIG has stated, and it can be found on Spectrum. And they couldn't give the paint to the ship because it was not considered in the ship showdown. So just to let you know, that's why you're not getting the C8R, the best in show paint for the C8R. So sorry, I just had to say that because I wasn't sure at the time, but I thought that it could be done, but it's not being done. So go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, just remember when a new ship is released on during IE, don't expect anything extra to come with it because it's just a newly released ship. Just expect the new ship. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, a lot of people were expecting it, and it did not come to fruition. There was a post that was saying that it was gonna come, and they made a correction. They made a mistake, and that's what's going on with that. So
Yeah. Well,
next thing.
next, yeah. So at
Sorry.
this point, you're fine. You're fine. At this point in time, the ship sales are still going on. You probably have until tomorrow, basically,
Yeah.
to buy anything you want. Um, you know, so if you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, um, don't worry. More ship sales will come. Luminalia is next month. We may or may not get ship sales with that. Invictus is April, May, basically. So combat ships are then. Alien Week will be midsummer. And then Citizen Con will be next year. And followed by IAE.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I mean, that kind of covers all the topics. I'm going to let you, if you have any final thoughts, I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll say my final thoughts.
The main final thought that I have is for the new players. When you're coming into the game, don't be afraid to ask questions. Throw them out in the global chat. Somebody will help you. Somebody will answer the question for you. Get with an organization that you feel comfortable with. They will help you. If you go solo for a little bit, that's okay, but eventually you want to make friends. You want to interact with people. It is the heart of Star Citizen. Like I said, I did solo for a bit, and without me meeting Mike and Joe and others, the experience would have been very frustrating. So don't get frustrated. Don't let yourself get to that point. Ask questions in the chat, and somebody will answer your question. The the community is very helpful. There are some people that are just outright mean. I'm just going to say it because they're there. But don't be afraid. I was, and because I didn't know anybody or anything like that, it takes time. It takes time. And it's something that you really need to look into. So organizations are there to help you, and there's very good ones out there. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I do help new players. So that's pretty much all I got as far as this, and that's my final thoughts on the main things. But
Yep.
the Galaxy, a very beautiful ship. I do have one in concept, and I'm waiting for it. And I got a Carrick for for with the ship for as a loaner. I couldn't beat that. So
Yeah, it's basically a
six,
$380, $400 Carrick, whereas
yeah,
Carrick standalone or $600. Yeah,
right. So I mean, it's a great deal. You just have an excellent ship, and you get the rover and the C8 with it. So you're getting the best deal when you go and get a Galaxy. So just food for thought. If you decide to get one, you'll get a good deal. Three three vehicles for the price of one. Can't beat it.
yeah.
Just gonna say. But that's all I got. That's all I got, man.
Yeah. So, my final thoughts for tonight are simple. Remember, I'm going to echo chat a little bit here. If you're a new player, find people to play with. Check, there are recruiting spot and spectrum, stuff like that. And there's also a thing on robertspaceindustries.com. That's basically a guide system
Mm-hmm.
that you can use. The community hub is there too. I believe it's under Spectrum, and then there's a guide system on the left-hand side. Looks like a torch.
Yeah.
And
It's on Spectrum.
yep, you can make yourself available, or you can go and become more or less either somebody who can help somebody else, or you can help other players or ask for help. I'm on there, so you may get me as someone who can help you, or you may not.
Yeah.
Depends on the world, right?
Yeah, I'm on there too. So, yeah.
Yeah. So outside that, remember, spend your money wisely. Don't overspend. Don't put yourself in bad debt. And if there's the ship you want, remember, there's always next year. The best way to buy the ship you want is to spend a little bit every month and build up a fleet so you can melt it next year and use that store credit for the bigger ship that you go to. That's another big piece of advice I got. Outside that, enjoy the game, enjoy each other's company. I look forward to seeing you out there in the verse. And this is Payne, officer of IHLS, signing out.
And this is Shadow Spectre 11. We are closing out this podcast. We appreciate you all for listening and coming to hear us. If you want to get involved with the podcast, please direct message me either in game or on my Discord, which the link will be in the description of this podcast. And I will also put referral codes for myself, Payne, and also Voidwalker Joe. So, too bad he couldn't make it to this one, but he will hopefully be back with the next podcast we do, which will be coming out next week. So, I hope you all have a good evening, and we're signing out. Have a good evening.